Alik Sakharov directed the last four episodes of Ozark and is now nominated at the Emmys for Outstanding Directing for a Drama Series. I'm Riley Chow, contributing editor at Gold Derby. And at Gold Derby, we follow the Emmys all year round. And we are just outraged about the snubs of Tom Pelphrey and Janet McTeer. How are you feeling about that?
I feel pretty sad, I have to say, because I feel that Tom and Janet, they did a superb job. And what Tom was able to do is, um, I think it's like choke-inducing, you know. And what he did in his last episode, episode 9, Fire Pink, uh, I mentioned it earlier. It's sort of like, it was, for me, it was like compendium on acting, on uh, the ability to inhabit the character so well, so deeply. You just don't feel like the person is acting. You feel like he's living the role, and you feel like he is that person, you know. And for him um, for him not to be nominated, sort of crime. I don't know how that happened.
You directed the last four episodes of the season, as I said, and that's something that we don't really see a lot in television drama, directing that many all at the same time. How did you come to direct, I believe, what was called this Megablock?
It was, I think, joint decision between Jason Bateman, uh, Chris Mundy, and Patrick Markey, our executive producer, non-writing executive producer, who wanted to have, I guess, a person who could create the unity and shoot it fast, on time, on budget. And things like this are not unfamiliar to me. So I figured, I'd prep it like two 2-hour films. And I had a phenomenal first ID, Peter Thorell, who helped me a lot. And we basically broke down the entire schedule. And I also broke down the script into very palatable shooting scenarios so that everyone understood exactly what was required. And I've had very good meetings with everybody in reference to the time frame that we wanted to allot for those 4 episodes, and how we wanted to be very diligent and respectful of the time that was given to us. And we basically prepped everything, every single scene. And when it came time to the execution of it, it actually wasn't very complicated because we've already broke it down into minute details during the prep. So, and we all understood what needed to be done, so that when we actually went into the field shooting the stuff, it's basically just checking off certain marks. And for me to be able to get the performances that I wanted to get, and usually not too many takes. And everyone was on the same page. And, our DP, Armando Salas, brilliant guy, just brilliant. He ran a very tight ship, and with his crew, everyone was just together. I love that. I have to say that I love that crew. I love the whole dynamic that Jason and Chris and Patrick were able to create there. It makes the job of a director there is very, 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 well, I wouldn't say easy because nothing is easy, but it's quite palatable and enjoyable. I guess it wasn't a big deal, really. I mean, it's business as usual.
Now, the last two episodes this season, titled Fire Pink and All In, I feel like they really took the show to another level, and the show got a response from fans that it really never had before. Both of them are nominated at our Gold Derby Awards for Episode of the Year. We'll be sending you a certificate if you win. You submitted Fire Pink to the Emmys. What stood out about that episode for you?
I have to say that I was really torn. I loved episode All In, and this was my initial pick, actually. And then as I was weighing it out, it's like Fire Pink or All In. it was very tough decision. It was a very tough decision. And I think the reason why I went for episode 9, submitting that, is because I really, really, really thought that dramatically that episode was so intense. And it felt like a very succinct standalone film, like a small little installment that could be shown independent. Even though even though you may not know the story arc, you may see that episode and be moved by it because of what happens within the confines of that particular hour, and what decisions had to be made by the main protagonist, Wendy, in reference to her brother, Ben, and how it affects not only her, but us, the viewer. I mean, everyone, I assume everyone got touched by it. I know when I watched and during the editing even, you know, I was very, I was emotive. And I think I went with that, you know, rather than with a bang at the end of the episode and all in, I thought there was something very existentially prophetic with this woman parked at the side of the road, completely losing faith in herself, really.
Yeah, you mentioned the last scene of the season. I wanted to ask about that one because it is it is quite over the top. So I'm wondering how you approach that scene.
Oh, well, I remember the first time when initially when I read the script, I don't want to really think about it in terms of technicalities. You know, I just want to enjoy it for the sake of the story. I just want to see how it lends itself out, you know, how it falls off the page, so to speak. And because the scripts are so interesting, I mean, from the point of view of the literature, you know, it's a very interesting thing to read those scripts. They don't read like your normal television scripts. They read, like, to me, like pieces of short stories, and they're very engaging and they're very captivating. So they're page turners. So when I read the last episode, and particularly with the way it ended, I didn't want to be encumbered by the technique of it. I remember it affected me, like, wow. And as you come closer to the end of the script and you keep turning pages and like, I don't know, it's like 3 or 4 pages left. I mean, there's no resolution yet. What's going to happen? It's like it builds. And then when they arrive to Navarro's estate and Helen buys it, you go like, whoa. I mean, it sticks with you. Even on the page, it sticks with you. So I was thinking that I think in order to translate it into a plausible visual scenario, I didn't want to overcover it. You know, I wanted to have a slight bit of spontaneity and a little bit of imperfection, if you will. You know, it's like I didn't want to polish it to the point where everything is just tic-tac-toe. And then, because I was afraid to telegraph something that might have been, I know what's coming, right? So we went with moving camera. You know, camera was on Steadicam and it wasn't set up as we normally would with shots like this. And we rehearsed. You know, I had quite a few previous segments done where I wanted for everyone to understand what this shot will involve, where will the shot's going to come from, the gunshot, how the brain matter is going to end up on Wendy and Marty's faces, and everything was sort of like geometrically set up in such a way so that everyone really understood where they would have to fall in order for that effect to take place. And so once we've rehearsed everything and once we've found our comfort zone, and that means not only just actors, but, you know, camera crew and special effects crew and just everybody. Then, of course, you know, it became the matter of really executing the plan. So I've rehearsed it several times with stand-ins. And then I've asked the first team to come in and just run it a few times so there's a unity with the scene such that it becomes the organic part of it, so you don't have to think about it anymore. And Laura and Jason and Janet, and there's such an accomplished team, that everything is very natural to them. So after several attempts at rehearsing the scene, I figured it's time to shoot now. And so we shot it in one take, and we just did one take. That was it. It worked. We watched the playback. The bit of imperfection that was there, I actually quite loved, because that allowed me to feel like, oh, it's natural enough for it not to betray anything. And I bought it, so I showed it to Jason and Laura, and I think Chris was there. Everybody watched it, and I'm like, guys, I'm gonna move on. This is good. And I moved on. It was good.
What do you mean about the imperfection? Like, what did you find was imperfect about it?
Just slight variations. Like I wanted to Fincherize everything and make it just so. Like in David Fincher's world, everything is just so perfect. And a big fan of David, and big fan of that perfection, right? And by putting the camera on a Steadicam, you're already allowing some degree of imperfection, because you can't control frame anymore. The frame is going to be controlled with the movement, with the way camera operator breathes, and how we're going to advance towards our protagonist. Because the camera was continually advancing with this. It was just a one continuous kind of like moving shot a little bit. And because you can't calculate the steps that the cameraman is going to take, right? In it already exists a slight bit of cinema verite, if you will. So it kind of worked in favor of that shot.
Now, the third season had a clearer and a lighter look than the previous seasons. I watched this 100-minute interview you did with the American Society of Cinematographers, where you said that you were actually not a fan of this kind of new visual look that they had for the third season. So in a case like this where, you are working with executive producer Jason Bateman and cinematographer Armando Salas, and they've kind of established a look, how do you reconcile that?
It's fine. I mean, look, I've been in the business long enough to understand and to accept things that are wanted for different reasons. I think it's because second season got under scrutiny and critique of it being very dark. And I understood I guess it wasn't the reply to the criticism that everything got brighter. I don't think, no. I think it's new technology. We shot with a different camera this year. Season 3. And, in my past life, I used to be a cinematographer. And for me, to withhold information, visual information, is very important. Because it's like you go to a museum and you watch paintings by Rembrandt, for instance. If you take a stroll at Metropolitan Museum of Art and you happen upon the painting of the thinker at the bust of Aristotle, right? It's such a definitive work, but you need to be searching that work because it's so underlit. There's so much information that's withheld from the viewer that by virtue of it not being presented to you at full capacity, it draws you in. It makes you go closer and closer and closer and closer. There's a magnetic effect that, is very, very important, I think, that when it is present, it creates a sort of a hook for the audience that pulls you in. It pulls you in without controlling you. It's more like a subtle. You're not even realizing. It's like watching Godfather. Godfather is so underlit in many places. You go like, wait a minute, this is interesting. This is actually interesting. There's a reason why all this information is withheld. Because I think that if you have, and it's my personal thing, if you have a lot of exposition in dialogue or in visual, then you have too many things to. I'm afraid that they begin to cancel each other out. But if you have a fair amount of exposition in dialogue, and then you start withholding some information visually, I think you're actually enriching the scene. That's my personal view. You know, I did Sopranos that way. Whereas I started very, very bright in the first season. And then it started going continually darker and darker and darker. By the time we finished with Sopranos, it became a very dark show. You know, and it's not because, you know, oh, you know, I wanted to be dark. No, I think the story supported that. You know, the dramatics of the story supported that. And I actually think that second season of Ozark had that very interesting dark pool. And it just kept me going like this towards the screen, closer and closer. I just wanted to dissect everything and really understand and really see and really just, you know, just try and, I was very, very attentive, you know, it held my attention. When everything is a little bit overexposed or a little bit more presented, that intrigue is dissipating a little bit. That's just my personal point of view. I may be completely wrong, but that's how I react to things.
Yeah, I want to address your background a bit more to set up my next question. So you won the Emmy for cinematography for Rome. You were the series cinematographer for The Sopranos. You were the original cinematographer for Game of Thrones. That best cinematography category, it so often goes to shows like Deadwood or Carnival, Rome, Boardwalk Empire. Game of Thrones was nominated 9 times. I'm wondering if you have any insight into why it never won the Emmy for cinematography.
Oh gosh, I don't know why. I really don't know why. I mean, it certainly should have several times, because the language, the visual language that Game of Thrones inhabits, it's a very sophisticated way of telling the story. And those cinematographers are brilliant that came after me. Far better than myself. You know, I'm totally fine with that. But, you know, certainly Jonathan Freeman's work, who is one of the, I would say, preeminent cinematographers working right now, should have been acknowledged that way. I don't know why. I don't know why. You know, I also don't know who's really voting. I mean, who's really voting? I don't know. Do you?
Yeah. It varies by the year, though. They're always changing up the rules, and they have different processes for the nominations and the winners. So it's quite convoluted, actually.
I would imagine. You know, I have to say that when I won in 2007, it was a complete shock to me. I mean, total surprise. You know, I haven't done anything. Well, of course, I submitted the work, but I haven't done anything. There was no promotion, nothing. And when it finally came, I wasn't bad. I think actually I was on the East Coast. So when John Melfi, the producer, called me, he said, "You just won an Emmy." I'm like, "What?" I was asleep.
You didn't go to the ceremony?
I haven't gone there.
No. Okay.
Because I was so sure that I wasn't going to win. You know, it's like, you know, I'm on the East Coast, it's on the West Coast. You know, there was just all this. I had a small child, and so I decided to stay home.
Well, Alik, thanks very much for taking the time to chat. To our viewers, we have other chats with Ozark nominees on our YouTube channel, and you can go to goldderby.com to make your Emmy predictions.
Thank you so much. It was fun.